Shut up and sit down.
This is the way.
Welcome, my friends. I am not Din Djarin the Mandalorian. I am Simon, your cosplay nerd. And today I'm here to talk to you about exactly how I made my Mandalorian armor inspired by the Disney Plus show The Mandalorian, and hopefully to share some lessons that I learned along the way to save you falling into any of the same pitfalls. I'm lucky enough to have a 3D printer at home. It's a Chinese brand called Tech, which is basically a clone of a MakerBot Replicator 2. Now, I've used my 3D printer for small knickknacks and accessories when I've been building cosplay in the past, but this was the first time I ever tried to build something as large and ambitious as a suit of armor. So to start with, if you're looking to 3D print something as complex as a suit of armor, the best place to start is Thingiverse, where there are a ton of models that you can just download for free to get you rolling. My printer's print bed is actually pretty small, so I knew that I'd have to slice up the models quite considerably to get them to fit. I decided to start with the most iconic and what I thought would be the most difficult piece, the helmet. So I downloaded the model from Thingiverse, sliced it up myself, and then started the print. I was super impressed by how accurate the print came out, and I started to glue everything together using just regular super glue that I bought in bulk from Amazon because I figured I would need a lot for this project. Unfortunately though, after gluing the first helmet together, I actually found it was significantly too small to fit on my head. Rookie mistake. So I ditched that first helmet and started again with all of the pieces that I was 3D printing resized to 12% larger. Despite how great your 3D printer may be, you're bound to have some tiny gaps when you actually glue the pieces together. So because of that, you're going to have to do some degree of filling and sanding. In my case, as I said, I glued the pieces together using regular super glue. Then I decided to use Bondo because it dries pretty fast and it dries rock solid and sandable. So I used Bondo to fill in any cracks on any of the items and then used regular sandpaper to sand it. I use a technique called wet sanding, where you take a spray bottle of regular soapy water and you spray it on the surface that you're sanding. Then, when the sandpaper actually gets wet with that soapy water, it's lubricated, and it not only makes the sand smoother, but it actually extends the lifespan of your sandpaper. I always start with 3D printed parts glued together with super glue and then Bondo to fill in the cracks, and I start to sand that Bondo down. However, I find it very difficult when the Bondo gets close to the level of the 3D printed material to be able to see whether it's truly smooth. So what I do at that point is I use a thick Rust-Oleum paint called hammered paint to paint on top of the 3D printed parts and the Bondo. Then with everything the same color, it's pretty easy to see where any ridges and bumps are, and I can go back to work with sanding it. And I normally do that a few times, with sanding it down, painting it over again, taking a look at it with a fresh eye, and then sanding it again. And I've got to say, I could have spent more time sanding my armor to make it absolutely perfect and smooth. I really just wanted to get things rolling, so maybe one day I'll go back and have another go at that. So with the helmet, once I was satisfied that it was as smooth as I was probably going to get it, I then sprayed it with Rust-Oleum Silver Metallic spray paint as its first base coat of paint. I repeated the same process for the left shoulder here, which was another image that I downloaded from Thingiverse. However, when I came to the right shoulder, the one with the Mudhorn sigil, I actually couldn't find at the time a Thingiverse model with the sigil on the shoulder. So what I did was I actually downloaded an image of a Mudhorn sigil that was completely separate, and using a free online tool called Tinkercad, I combined the Mudhorn sigil with a mirror image, a flipped version of my left shoulder. And I've got to say, I'm really pleased with how it's come out. After that, again, it's a case of filling, sanding, painting, ad nauseum, until you're satisfied that it's either as smooth as you're going to get it, or you've lost the will to live and it's good enough. So when I built this in December 2019, there were no models available on Thingiverse for the chest armor, so I purchased the chest armor from a seller on Etsy, and I was really satisfied. I felt like I got good value for money, but you can probably find free chest armor images on Thingiverse instead now. The chest armor for me is the piece that I'm least happy with. It's got quite a few bumps and grooves on it that I didn't sand particularly well. The reason for that is I'd actually like to adjust the size, so I'm probably going to go back and reprint it at some point. I felt like spending too much time on it would have been wasted effort. And you won't be surprised to find that all of the other armor pieces had the same process. Print them, glue them, bond them, fill them, sand them. But by the end of that grueling sanding work, I had a full set of Mandalorian armor with a base coat of silver metallic paint on it, ready for the next stage. So please join me in part 2, where I'm going to talk about how I did the weathering and detailing on the paint jobs, how I added a visor to the helmet, and how I added lots and lots of fabricated leather straps and knickknacks. So as always, I am Simon, your cosplay nerd. Peace out, my friends. This is the way.
Shut up and sit down.